All right, let's talk Portuguese. Specifically, let's talk about one of the biggest headaches for learners, irregular verbs. But what if I told you there was a secret, a shortcut that lets you learn dozens of them just by mastering two? Sounds pretty good, huh? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
I mean, you know the feeling, right? You're cruising along, conjugating verbs, everything's making sense, and then bam, you hit this wall of verbs that just refuse to play by the rules. It's so frustrating, especially at that intermediate stage. It feels like you have to memorize this never-ending list. But here's the thing, you really don't.
And that, right there, is the whole secret. The key isn't brute force memorization, it's all about pattern recognition. Today, we're going to look at just two master verbs whose conjugation patterns unlock entire families of other verbs. Seriously, this is a total grammar game changer.
So let's get into our first master key, and that is the verb por, which means to put. Now, once you get the hang of how to conjugate this super irregular verb, you've pretty much learned how to handle a whole bunch of other verbs, with basically no extra work. Pretty cool, right? Take a look at this list. Every single one of these verbs, compor, depor, supor, is just por with a little prefix tacked onto the front. And because of that, they all share its conjugation DNA. They follow the exact same irregular patterns. So let's actually see how this works in a real sentence.
Okay, pop quiz time. Here's a sentence for you. Now, Camões is a super famous Portuguese poet, and sonetos lindíssimos means very beautiful sonnets. So looking at that verb compôs, can you guess what that means?
You got it. He composed them. See, compose is the past tense of compor, and it follows the exact same pattern as pos, which is the past tense of our master verb, por. You see how that works? You learn one, and suddenly you know them all. All right, let's do one more from the por family, just to really lock it in. This time we're using the verb supor. What do you think this one's saying? It means, I never supposed that could happen. And again, notice suppose is conjugated exactly like you would conjugate por in that same form. Once you start seeing the family connection, you can understand these new sentences instantly. Okay, so there is one little tricky thing with the verb por itself that you gotta know. It's a special rule, but here's the key. It only applies to the master verb itself, not the rest of its family.
So here's the deal. The verb por gets this little circumflex accent, that little hat on top of the O, to tell it apart from the preposition por, which means by or for. They're called homographs, right? Spelled the same, but mean different things. That little accent is your signal that you're looking at the verb, but, and this is super important, this rule only applies to por. The other verbs in the family, like compor or supor, they don't need it, because there's no other word to get confused with. Makes sense, right?
Okay, so you've basically got the por family down. Awesome. Let's move on to our second master key, which is the verb ter, meaning to have. And, you guessed it, it works the exact same way as before. All of these verbs you see here, manter, obter, conter, they're all just derivatives of ter, so they inherit all the same irregular conjugations. It's the same idea, just a new family to work with.
So you know what that means. Time for another little challenge. This sentence uses the verb mentir. It starts off, despite being attacked by everyone, he, so what do you think he did? What's manteve? He always maintained the same posture. Manteve is the past tense of manter. And guess what? It's a perfect mirror of tive, which is the past tense of ter. It's that beautiful, predictable pattern showing up again.
Okay, one last one to really nail this down. This example uses obter, which, as you can probably guess, means to obtain. So, can you figure out what happened here? And there you have it. At the Beijing Olympics, Portugal obtained 2 medals. Obteve follows the exact same pattern as teve. See? Once you spot this connection, you just can't unsee it. This is how you start thinking in patterns instead of just trying to memorize a mountain of words.
Now, just like the por family, the ter family has its own little accent rule, but this one's a bit of a twist. It's actually kind of the opposite of the last one. The rule doesn't apply to ter itself, it applies to all its children, the derivatives.
Let me show you exactly what I mean. In the present tense, for he has, you'd say ele tem. Simple enough. But if you're using a derivative like manter, that same form gets an accent. Ele mantém, he maintains. Same thing for the you form. Tu tens becomes tu mantens. It's a small detail for sure, but it's a really important one that you only have to worry about for the verbs in this family, not for ter itself.
So, there you have it. This is basically your new grammar superpower. By really understanding these two families and their two little special rules, you haven't just learned two verbs. No way. You've unlocked the ability to use over a dozen of the most common and trickiest irregular verbs in Portuguese.
Okay, let's just boil this all down into a super simple guide. For the por family, remember, only the main verb por gets that little accent hat. For the ter family, it's the total opposite. Only the derivatives get the accent, and only in those specific present tense forms we talked about. Seriously, this is the perfect moment to grab a screenshot of this slide. It's a great little cheat sheet. So now you've got this amazing new tool in your Portuguese learning toolkit. You can actually go out and start using verbs like propor, manter, or supor with confidence. So the only question left is, which one of these new verbs are you going to use first? Thanks for sticking with me on this one.